Hi, everyone. I am Sue Britton. I am the co-founder of Fathom Foresight. And Jeet, my fellow co-founder, and I are here today to kind of walk you through um, an insight session focused on the B2B and B2C competitors in the payment space in Canada, and give you some highlights on how things look in the industry right now with respect to fintechs competing with incumbents. As I said, my name is Sue Britton. I'm co-founder. Prior to launching Fathom Foresight, some of you may know I was the founder of Fintech Growth Syndicate, FGS, and much of what FGS was doing in the fintech space has become part of Fathom Foresight. And I'd like to introduce Jeet, my esteemed and smarter other half co-founder. Jeet.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Really looking forward to present some of our insights today. I would say we have been collecting this juicy insights all this earlier year. So really looking forward to present these.
Awesome. Okay, so let's jump in. So the first thing we're going to just do is sort of level set on the space. And so as some of you may know, we track all the fintechs in Canada. And to us, fintechs are both, startups who are new entrants in the industry, but also incumbents who have been here for quite some time. And surprisingly, recall in 2019 doing a report for the Department of Finance, and there was about just under 1,000 fintechs. We're now up to about 2,000. And so, just in a few short years, even with the pandemic, we've seen an incredible growth in the number of companies, both attracted to and operating in Canada, but maybe headquartered elsewhere, as well as our own, really robust, fintech companies that have been founded here. So this is one of we track the sector. We have a platform that we track the sector in, and the pink is the paytech sector, and it still remains the largest sector in Canada of all fintechs. But what we're going to focus on today is not just all of the paytechs, but those that are what we're calling foes. And it's a bit of a cheeky way to describe it, because they're certainly not all foes. Many are partnered with financial institutions, but the point is that they are serving a consumer or a business directly as perhaps their primary business model in market. And so of the 2,000 fintechs, of the total number, 70% of them are actually either business to consumer or business to business company. And we'll show you kind of a breakdown of that as it relates to paytech on the next slide. So happy days. Canada is still one of the big drivers of fintech growth in the world. This is a market map, and it's on our platform. We have market maps and competitive maps and all sorts of different ways of looking at the space. The point on this one was less about the logos and the market map, but more to say, of the 550 paytechs in Canada, over 80% are actually alternative or competitive products. So unlike some of the other segments, such as wealth management, or otherwise, most of the companies in payments are working directly with consumers and businesses, so 80%. And then of that, B2B is 60% of that. So, I think there's several sessions talking about small businesses, and those business sector is very, very, very well served by the fintech or paytech space by far. And perhaps maybe the insight there is that consumer payments has been a sector that's grown significantly, maybe perhaps for longer, with very, very big companies. So we'll go right into. I'm going to focus.
pause a little. I think we have some technical difficulty. I'm seeing a lot of messages that are around that they cannot see or anything, hear anything in the chat. Just want to make sure um,
Oh,
everything's going fine. Yeah.
someone from National Bank says they can only see.
Yeah.
Ah,
A lot of people actually. Yeah.
oh yeah. Well, it looks like it's good for some, and not for others.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
It looks
That's
like it
good.
is working for some, and I think we'll just keep going. Unfortunately, I wish we could stop to address it, but looks like it's okay.
I think somebody
Um,
said just refresh, maybe just in case people who aren't able to
yeah.
just refresh their screens. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, let's keep going. So I'm going to jump into the B2B payments section, and Jeet, if you can advance to the next slide. And we're going to talk about competition and trends, and then Jeet's going to take over, and she's going to dive deep into the consumer payment space. And so, from a major, I guess, trend perspective, embedded finance for businesses has got to be one of the hottest topics in payments, and in general for financial products. I wanted to start here because a lot of the B2B paytechs are not just in one space. Can we still see the screen? Yeah, we're good. Okay, I'm going to try and ignore what's going on here. I don't see the presentation anymore.
Yeah, me neither. I'm certain I didn't do anything.
Oh boy. Okay, slides have gone missing. Shoot. What should I do, Payments Canada folks? Unfortunately, it's a platform thing as opposed to, oh, Jeet, they want you to share your screen.
I am actually, yeah, not sure why it's not.
Sorry, folks. Yeah, stop sharing and then retry sharing, maybe. I can try sharing my screen. Do you want me to do that?
It is being shared, but somebody has to put me on. I'm just working with the. Okay, there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully you guys are all have experienced similar fun like this.
Hopefully next time we'll be all in a room and this won't happen.
Yeah. All right. All right. So I'm just going to keep going because I don't want to waste anybody's time. So embedded finance, very, very big trend, basically across the world, is only going to be made bigger with open banking. And I mean, what we mean by this is that the business, who you can see in the illustration on the right, has a number of things that they need in order to operate their business, none of which are things that they actually do, likely, in terms of their core business. They don't, that here we're talking about a business that is, perhaps like Fathom Foresight, we're a platform business. There could be a construction company or a merchant. And what's happening is small businesses are using applications that are more and more and more becoming digital applications. And the financial product, such as, the payment solution, whether that be a credit card or a bill payment or a payroll product, are being embedded in these platforms like accounting platforms, as well as obviously, banking. But that this industry, and this is a US stat, we don't really have a Canadian or global stat, but that this industry has seen a 10 times increase since 2020. And Cornerstone Advisors, which is a firm out of the US, suggests that this space is going to be about a $230 billion opportunity just in the US by 2025. Tech giants and major software players stand to really win in this arena. because of their already established customer base. So you could go to the next slide. The next major trend is banking as a service. And again, for small businesses, frankly, whether they're the fintechs themselves or a small business that is working with a fintech, such as Square, Shopify, Loop, others, there's a growing trend to towards banking as a service, which means banks, and you can see on the bottom of this screen, we've got People's, WFCU, which actually just launched, or Loop just launched, and WFCU is the issuer. It's first time I've seen them as an issuer of a product in Canada. So hopefully I'm not wrong on that. But and then DC Bank, EQ Bank. There's not very many of our regulated financial institutions in Canada who are playing in the banking as a service space, but we expect to see that change drastically moving forward. And this is something that's actually very active in the US. And the illustration is meant to say banking as a service is a bank that is offering their license, either and platform, including the operations, the regulation, the handling all the turnkey kind of services needed to open and issue accounts for a brand. And that brand could be a fintech, it could be like Shopify has done that in the US through Stripe, or Square in Canada through Marqeta. So those are two big trends. On the next slide, these are examples of what both embedded and banking as a service might look like to the end user. And so, you can see many opportunities where there could be bundling of financial products on the accounting platform already. Most of the names of companies on this page are already doing that. But it's definitely, there's lots of possibilities. And I would say from our perspective, we've seen a lot of interest from non-financial institutions in enabling some type of financial product, whether that's payments or lending, to their customers. And so getting into this space. So on the next slide, we're going to get into a few examples. And so, and I just want to say thank you to a lot of the companies who provided us with information about their companies so that we could share some real live approved information about these companies. So I picked 4. These are pure payments companies. So Trolley, which was has been a company operating in Canada since 2015, has raised as a Series A company and really focuses on the contractor segment, basically handles everything for for a business around payouts. Pluto is a company we've used almost since day one of FGS, founded in 2015, 60 employees. They service 7,000 small business customers, and they're very much focused on the tech forward segment. And Pluto really enables you to get around the issue of limitations on the payment, the B2B payment method based on the amount of the transaction. So you can pay any size transaction using Pluto. Click to Pay, which just recently launched, has 28 employees, actually just recently experienced growth of 35% quarter over quarter for Q1 of 2022. And Click to Pay is real-time payments for businesses who have customers who don't want to use credit. And a great idea, and a company that's just doing extremely well. And then Zoom Rails. Zoom is more than a payments company. They're really, positioning themselves in the open banking space, but essentially is a payment gateway that is allowing for companies like Questrade, which is one of their published customers, who this enables their customers to basically push and pull funds into their accounts real time from their banks. And so the biggest thing here, I would say, is, many of these competitors are fast, perhaps faster. They're fully digital. They're taking care of your banking relationships for you, and ultimately they're charging less. And so that's what you're faced with on some of the pure payments competitors. On the next slide, uh, we have profiled Tabit, and if you haven't heard about Tabit, they are a company that has merchant growth has, excuse me, has launched and they're in the buy now pay later space. They're really focused on e-commerce and point of sale. As a small business who's had to make reasonable size purchases, buy now pay later really resonates for me, and I think it will for many companies. It is one of the hottest segments in places like Europe. Companies like Balance, which was started by former PayPal folks who are growing very rapidly in the U.S. So I think we will see buy now pay later be a huge success. Again, especially fueled by open banking. You can go to the next slide. And so now we get into another sort of payment category, which is debit payment. But really, we refer to these companies as challenger banks. And the reason why is because to an end user, you can deposit your money and you can use your card or your application to pay. And no small no small companies on this list. Certainly, Square launched their payments product last year, and we have not seen any numbers on how many of their customers are using the payments, the debit product. But what it essentially allows is for their customers to have their customers' payments go directly into their account, their own business account. So it's real time revenue or cash recognition. Jeeves is another new entrant in the space, a giant company already, had about 170 employees, and this is focused on a small business, essentially as an alternative to a bank account. Pillar has not. Pillar is a new company that one of our friends, Elena Latani, has co-founded and is backed by Diagram Ventures and I think somebody else, maybe Portage, but regardless, Pillar is a new small business bank product. There's a wait list for that. Benji, similarly, it's been around for a little bit longer, but is also a product where there's a wait list. And then Lenco, I included Lenco. It's not available in Canada, but it was something that was supported by a Techstars, one of the recent Techstars cohorts, and has raised a tremendous amount of money, and so and did so in Canada. And so, this is a big area of growth that we hadn't seen last year even. And then the next slide is about credit cards, and this is something that both from our own business perspective as a small business is a super exciting space. So Carry is a tremendous new addition to the Canadian fintech landscape. They are just coming off of their beta tests with customers, and I think the biggest thing about this space is they pardon me, there's no there's no personal liability. So as a business owner, when you go and open up a credit card or anything really with the financial institutions, until you reach a certain size, you are personally responsible as well as through your business. And so that's tough for some of us entrepreneurs to have that both hit against our credit rating, but also just in general, it locks up a lot of liquidity for us. And so that's one big difference. But Brim, who is somebody that's been around for a few years, 2015, has all of these companies are growing, both Float and Carry are both in the 45 employee range. Both have raised a significant amount of money. Brim has just announced a partnership with Laurentian Bank and with Canadian Western Bank. Canadian Western Bank is a fairly significantly in the small business space. And the thing that I think is really important here is just the accounting integrations, the cashback and rewards that are offered, cash flow analysis. These are things that you unfortunately really are not able to get from your banking products. So I think it's something definitely to look into. And then the last one that I wanted to mention was a new announcement that came out on Friday on the next slide, which is Loop. And so Loop is a company that just a product that was just launched by the founders of Lending Loop. Loop Card is a new product, and they're focused on the e-commerce business space. And really, what their card is, it allows you to do. It's a multi-currency corporate card, and provides instant access to credit. No foreign exchange fees, spend and repay in a whole bunch of different currencies. And so looking forward to see Cato and this group be really successful with yet another great innovation for businesses. And that's the business segment. Over to you, Jeet.
Thanks, Sue. That was great. All right, so I think I'll kind of follow the similar lead to Sue, but talk about some of the payment companies and challengers that we have seen or are seeing coming up for the retail consumers, and a little bit touch on the gig economy as well and the gig workers, as well as that segment of the market is growing at a significantly high pace. All right, so I wanted to start with sort of an array of all the different types of or categories of apps that consumers are using these days, and that have embedded different kinds of financial products, not just payments or wallets, which were probably something as of a hook to get consumer into the financial products by these companies. But then they're getting into loans and mortgages, and buy now, pay later has completely opened up this space in a whole new different way. But if we look at the continuum, so we definitely have the banking apps that the consumers are using for their financial services as an obvious thing, but then all the fintechs and the challenger banks that are coming up, and they're moving beyond just offering a credit card or a deposit account, but something like Neo, we heard they've launched their mortgages product, and then some of the others are now consolidating and adding into the wealth space and crypto space. So kind of becoming more of an ecosystem play with these fintechs. Retail shopping apps, as I said, with buy now, pay later is a huge growing space now. Some of the bigger retailers, PC Money, we have seen is a huge success. Walmart is launching new products as well in financial space. Tech giants have been making a lot of announcements. Not a lot of tech giant products yet available in Canada, but we are hoping this year we will see some of those entries in Canada. A lot of consumer marketplaces like Facebook and Kijiji have some embedded products as well. I'll talk about this one later, but we are seeing models like Rent Now, Pay Later, or other rental products that are coming into property management space or fractional ownership space. And then finally, Uber and Skip Dishes and other gig economy apps that have a credit card or a debit card attached to the app, and basically the drivers or the dashers get access to their earnings the same day or right after the delivery, which is pretty amazing. So kind of you could see the continuum and the ecosystems building up in different categories of our lifestyles. But we essentially, when we look at it, how do you build a consumer ecosystem? So definitely payments, as I said, is the sort of a good hook to get the customer in. And then you form these a number of partnerships to enable bill payments for utilities, or maybe to enable mortgage payments or insurance premiums, and then P2P transfers, which is still, we haven't seen any such player do big time in real time P2P transfers yet. So Interac still remains a strong contender there. Other online payments or in-store payments, and then the entire gamut of financial products. And in addition, we have all these lifestyle ecosystems building up. Um, and as I said, yet we don't have a super app like WeChat or Alipay or Paytm, as is we've seen some of those examples in Asia. But we are seeing some strong contenders like Klarna just launched in Canada, and they have a lot of capabilities and sort of that ecosystem with embedded finance capabilities that might lead it into becoming a super app. But some of the other homegrown companies like Wealthsimple are also consolidating a lot of financial services into their apps. So yet to be seen, but really excited for Canada to have a super app sometime soon. All right. Sue touched a little bit on the challenger banks. This is not just B2C, but all the challenger banks in Canada. I wanted to touch on this because I think hardly a month goes by, if not a week, that we don't hear about a new debit product or a prepaid or a credit card being launched in the country. And as of today, we have around 60 challenger banks in the country. And they vary by sort of if they have their own banking license or are using issuer at the back end. So beta banks are all the banks that are digital offshoots of either a big bank or a credit union. We have seen some growth in it, not a lot, but I think the most growth has been in the neo segment where fintechs are using issuer bank to launch products like credit card or prepaid cards. But yeah, as I said, and the space is kind of becoming very competitive in the sense that fintechs that were earlier launching or had some other products like ShakePay, which was a cryptocurrency exchange, has launched a prepaid card. So a lot of fintechs are now that were not earlier offering such products are getting into the space, and it is becoming fairly competitive, both in terms of offerings and a number of players in the space. And kids or teen banking, this is one of the segments of the challenger banking space, and we are seeing a lot of new entrants in this area as well. Essentially, what these apps do is that they have two interfaces. One is for the parents, one's for the kids. Parents can assign tasks to the kids in order to give them pocket money. So there's this element of being paid, and then you could teach them about savings. And then you also have a spend card, and parents can monitor where the kids are spending the money, either in store or on online store. So really building that initial sort of financial literacy through an actual very tangible product that kids can then eventually, transition to a bigger financial relationships. Most of these are meant for teens, but there's a product called Sidekick, which I found it to be really interesting. This is meant for international students in Canada. And if you've been an international student, you would know that it's really tough to get money back from home. And a lot of fees are attached to it, but Sidekick is helping kind of eliminate some of those issues and helping kids that are studying in Canada get an easy way, an online way to get their money transferred. Lastly, RBC Ventures is also gotten into this space with their prepaid card, which is called Mido, seeing a lot of traction recently. So definitely a growing space and also very innovative in the sense there. All right, buy now, pay later. When we talk about buy now, pay later, usually most of the big names come to our mind. And in Canada, specifically, our homegrown company, PayBright, which was acquired by a firm. But we are seeing a whole gamut of players actually come up and offer buy now, pay later capabilities. So on the left side, all the major card networks have either partnered with a fintech or have acquired a fintech, a buy now, pay later company in last 1 year, and are launching their own installment solutions, both interest and interest-free. Tech giants, PayPal, Square, Shopify, all three have Pay in 4 or Shopify Pay or Square installments. Some of them are not available in Canada yet. but they're all have partnered with the BNPL and are offering those capabilities on their platforms. Global fintechs have entered the space as well. So, firm, as we know, acquired PayBright. Klarna entered last month in Canada. Sezzle and Afterpay have been here for a while. And then some of the other Canadian fintechs. Canadian FIs, we are yet to see a major shift in BNPL. Still, it's most of the Canadian FIs are offering installment solutions which are linked to credit card. RBC did launch a pay plan which is not linked to a credit card and functions more like a buy now pay later fintech solution. So we yet to see big FIs really launch a credit card free buy now pay later solution in Canada. Yeah, as I mentioned, Klarna launched earlier this year in Canada, and when we think of them, it's usually okay. They're buy now pay later, and they enable you to make payments and for payments. But actually, Klarna is much more than that. They have a banking license in Europe. The app that they have is a whole ecosystem of a number of retailers, and they have rewards or payments attached to it at the back end. You can track your receipts digitally. They also have something which is similar to buy now, pay now, which is like a debit product that they've launched and a card that they've launched in some countries. So essentially, they are building a very good ecosystem, and we'll see how it goes in Canada. Not all of these products are live in Canada yet, but definitely a huge potential there. All right, real-time and early payroll. On one of the previous slides, I kind of mentioned about the gig economy platforms like DoorDash or Uber and Lyft offering their dashers ability to access their payments in real time by attaching these prepaid or debit cards to their apps. But this trend is now moving beyond the gig economy or shift kind of jobs. Earlier it was like you do a job, you have a shift, you're done with the shift, you get paid after that. But now it's moving to more corporate jobs where you're paid twice a month, and companies like ADP and Ceridian have gotten into it. And it could vary from maybe 2 days before the payroll, you get your pay up to right after, like on the very same day. So there are a number of different solutions available, but we're seeing a lot more entrants in this space and a lot more partnerships happening in this space as well. All right, so this one I wanted to add in order to kind of talk about a trend which is coming up in a significant way now. So alternative credit scoring, we have been hearing about it for a while. And when it started, it was more about how do you use social credentials or what you're doing on Facebook. But over the years, it has become more, I would say, advanced, and a lot of additional payments data that credit bureaus were not earlier considering has started being included. For example, buy now, pay later payments that we would do earlier, they were not included in your credit scores, but all the major credit bureaus from this year, they've started adding buy now, pay later data in the scores. Paying rent or some of the utility payments was not included historically in the credit score, which is again kind of becoming more mainstream now. And some of the challengers in Canada are really playing a part in this as well. Coho and Stack and Refresh, they have these secured credit cards or credit line products, which might be as small as like Coho has a product which is only $7. So you pay $7 per month on their credit line, and they help you increase the credit score. And Stack with Credit Sesame has built a amazing product as well around those lines. And then we have some of the alternative data or alternative credit scores provider who are basically building up niches in different use cases. So the first line here, Chroma, Boom, and the last one is, geez, I'm forgetting their name. But all those three are actually in the rental space. So how do you ensure that the rent that you're paying every single month leads to it gets added in your score and leads to credit score building. And some of them also offer buy now, rent now, pay now, later option where you can basically pay your rent in 4 installments over a time period. So a lot more kind of happening in this space as well. And it's needless to say, with open banking and the data being more easily available to these different organizations, this space is definitely going to explode to a certain extent, and we'll see a lot more happening.
Hey, Jeet.
Yeah.
I know we only have 10 minutes to go, but I wanted to just mention our podcast that we just recorded with Kodat, which we will be launching hopefully today. And so on that previous slide, we should have a Kodat logo for it's essentially alternative credit adjudication for like data, basically for small businesses. So it should end already up and running in the Canadian market. So a company called Kodat will definitely be a contender. Yeah.
Yeah, a great open banking partner. They're already working with some companies in Canada, but yeah.
And so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Jeet's got 2 or 3 slides left, but we're happy to take questions.
Awesome. All right, so cryptocurrency marketplaces are launching prepaid debit cards. And this is interesting because historically, these platforms had used either Interac or wire transfers to buy Bitcoins or any other cryptocurrency. And when you sell those cryptocurrencies, the money is again transferred to your bank account. It does take some time. So these players essentially were trying to kind of figure out how to solve that problem for the consumer. So they upload their money in that card and they can buy crypto. And the moment they sell it, again, the money is back on the card in real time and you can spend it anytime. And they have attached other frills to it, like you get cash back in Bitcoins, which is pretty amazing. But the other thing is that with this product, they're learning so much more about the consumer that they didn't earlier. So they are learning about where the consumer is buying and their day-to-day banking habits, etc., which definitely has a huge potential for these players to play a much bigger role and offer more financial services in future to the consumer basis that data. All right, Moves Financial, I wanted to have a just feature slide on them because I think what they're doing is pretty amazing. So they are building an ecosystem for gig workers, and we haven't seen such a player in Canada yet. So they have a spending account, which is essentially a debit card where you can load money or you can receive your payments from your gig work, but they also offer cash advance just in case you missed, because gig payments could be pretty unpredictable. So they do offer cash advance that is essentially transferred into that card and you can easily spend. And one of the most latest things that they've did, it's called Moves Collective. So it's basically a rewards program that they have through which a gig worker can start to earn stock in the publicly traded company that they're working for. So imagine an Uber driver getting rewards through which he's buying Uber stocks, which is pretty amazing. And they're trying to kind of represent the gig economy in a way that they have a strong stake in these big publicly traded companies and have a collective voice in that way. It's a pretty cool company, and I'm sure they'll be launching many more products for gig workers in future as well. All right, this is my last slide. I wanted to kind of end with this thought. We have a lot of tech giants getting into payments and overall into financial services. So this slide kind of lays down all the major tech giants and what products they have launched in different fintech categories. The pink ones represent the ones that are in Canada. So this is also a great slide to see some of the gaps or white spaces in Canada that we'll see or are up for grabs for all players essentially at this point. But yeah, as we can see, a lot has happened in the digital wallet space. We haven't seen a lot of apps come up in P2P payments, credit cards, maybe a little bit, not a lot. Debit, again, the same way. We've seen a lot happening in remittances, and it's increasing. But some of the things like payment processing or making payments through a POR, through a QR code, essentially not a lot of that. But Apple recently announced that probably we'll be using iPhones as a POS probably later this year. So that still remains to be seen. But yeah, with that, I think we are good to take the questions.
We have one question, Jeet, and it's from Chris Bodner. He said, you commented on seeing an increase in the buy now, pay later model in business. Would you consider a B2B credit card model comparable where the issuer's payments terms help increase the days payable outstanding? If not, how do they differ? I think what is the difference is, first of all, if a business wants to, pay with cash or with their debit account, that option is not actually ideal for them. And what buy now, pay later does in that particular case is, if I want to buy let's say $1,000 computer for my business, but I'd actually like to, make the payments over four payments instead of one to free up cash flow, actually make that $10,000, and this would probably make more sense. But those are situations where it's less about wanting to use credit and more about wanting to manage my cash flow. And I think the thing about credit is, unless you're paying it off right away, you're incurring fees. And I think the buy now, pay later model, where it's installment based, is to the end customer. Very often they're not paying any fees. It's zero interest and so on. And so I think that's what the key difference is. But certainly, the only other comment I would make is that a credit card for a small business often comes with many, many restrictions in terms of size of purchase, as well as the terms of the credit card and the amount that you can actually have borrowed. And for the majority of small businesses in Canada, they likely have very small credit limits. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, we have, I think, 2 minutes left. One of the things I would just say, because what prompted us to want to have this, present this at the Payment Summit, was just the ability for a lot of these solutions to be embedded either in your financial institution, your credit union, or your banking products. I know for us, what we see is most businesses would actually prefer to have everything easy and convenient, and they're really not interested in doing anything manually or certainly having multiple subscriptions to manage to multiple platforms. And I think from a business perspective, the real opportunity here is to look at a lot of these players and think about embedding those products into your banking or credit union experience, because at the end of the day, it's that's what customers want. And so if you don't have the product, I think that would be one big trend that we would recommend you highly recommend you look into. Jeet, do you have a comment on the consumer side?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, at the end of the day, as you said, like, these are not essentially foes or like competition in the sense that in the future towards which we are heading. Like with open banking, things and switching accounts would be so easy that I don't think we should view it as enemies or competition, but how do we build those ecosystems at financial institutions so that consumer can still access some of these services that FIs are not offering. For example, but like FIs don't have to build their buy now pay later products. They can at this point, in order to access and leverage the ecosystems I have shown Klarna has, by partnering with them. And
great comment.
yeah. So in order to accelerate innovation and also ensure that the Canadians are actually well served in terms of both financial and lifestyle needs, we do need strong partnerships between FIs and some of these players.
Not to mention how many you know, how many customers you can acquire when you partner with the likes of, you know, Klarna and Affirm, who already have, and, you know, certainly Affirm, you know, which is perhaps more of a favorite of ours in Canada, given its PayBright origins. I mean, you know, in the millions range in terms of customers. So, you know, think of them as ways to actually gain new customer acquisition. And with that, we have to wrap. So thanks very much. Hopefully everybody's technical issues weren't totally horrible, and we hope you got some value from this. And thanks very much for having us.
Thank you, everyone.